This is very interesting because I'm somebody who loves the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love the MCU so much. I would argue that it's the most successful, money wise and quality wise, of any franchise ever. So I think when we look back on it years from now, these movies are going to be well regarded, high regarded, as they should. But every time somebody asks me, what's your least favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie? What's your least favorite of the MCU movies that you don't really care to go back and rewatch? And it's been the same answer for me every time. Iron Man 3. This movie was directed and co written by Shane Black. And the beginning of the film, we see a New Year's Eve party back in 1999. Tony Stark is being Tony Stark. He's being a dick. He has interactions with Maya Hansen and also has an interaction with Guy Pearce, who's a disabled guy who wanted to have a meeting with him and talk to him about a project. Tony said, "Oh yeah, just meet me on the roof and we'll talk." So of course he goes up there and waits there all night, and Tony never shows up. And we cut to present day. In present day, Stark is having panic attacks after the first Avengers, after him interacting with aliens, finding out that aliens exist, him realizing that he's just a man, and how is he going to be able to protect the people he loves, to do what he's doing. He can't sleep, he's having nightmares. There's even a moment when Pepper is trying to comfort him during a nightmare, and because Tony has built so many suits, one suit is tracked to know when he's upset, and the suit attacks Pepper. And that was a creepy moment because Pepper is his girlfriend, is his gal, and she's nearly being attacked by his suits. And I like this. I like seeing Tony Stark as somebody who is having these moments, that is vulnerable, because he is usually so over the top and boyish and self confident and too cocky sometimes. So I like this. I do like this element of his character. And I do like the idea that Tony is making all of these suits and that he is obsessed with trying to make sure the world is safe. He is obsessed with doing everything that he thinks he can do before it's too late. And that's where we see a bunch of videos. A bunch of videos of bombings and terrorist acts going on, and that's where we get introduced to the Mandarin. The Mandarin is probably Iron Man's biggest villain in the comic books. I admit that in the comics, he's a little cheesy, he's a little over the top. He is a magical character that has 10 rings and he uses them. It's supposed to be technology versus magic. That's the idea of it. But I love the fact that they changed the Mandarin early on to be a terrorist, to be a Osama bin Laden type, to have a following, to have a point of view, and have these videos that look serious, look legit, look scary. And I thought Ben Kingsley played these scenes of the Mandarin killing people very well. Happy Hogan, played by John Favreau, is badly injured in a bombing that goes on. Originally, he was supposed to die here, and I am so glad that they didn't kill him off because he's also appeared in later Marvel movies, and it's always nice to see John Favreau. But not just that, this movie, the trailers played it to seem very serious and seem very dark, and there are dark moments throughout it, but it has had such a fun tone. There's a lot of jokes, especially early on, that if you've had Hogan die, it would have been really depressing. It would have been too out of left field, I think, to match up with the fun aspects that they were trying to go for. Stark issues a challenge to the Mandarin, and he gives his home address. mistake number one, Stark. This does make Stark look kind of dumb, or at least somebody in over his head. And I know that Stark can be that guy. I know that Stark can be hot headed. It does make a little sense. But this seemed to cross the line. This is not only just you in this house, dude. You have a girlfriend. You have Pepper, who you should care enough about to not let your house or your address be open season for an attack. Because guess what happens? A bunch of helicopters show up and they get shot at with missiles, and the whole nice beach house gets destroyed. Pepper's in the house too, by the way, so where was the logic of trying to protect her here? We do get a decent moment of Pepper accidentally going into one of the Iron Man suits because her character in the comic books is Rescue, so that was very cool. And then the suit that Tony puts himself in, it wants to save him. So it flies himself to Tennessee, which is far away from the danger, but then runs out of power, which some people have argued that they don't know if suits like this would run out of power quite like this, but I don't really care about that because I do like the idea that Stark is stranded in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't have his suit. He doesn't have the technology. It's a similar circumstance as he found himself in the first movie, less extreme, but still similar to where he has to rely on his intelligence. He has to rely on his wit and what he can do with a box of scraps. That's where we meet 10-year-old Harley, who is this little boy that Stark meets and interacts with. And I know some people hate this kid. I'm not saying I love the kid, but I will say that I like him here more so than I did in Jurassic World. And also, they could have played this more cliched where the two of them bond and Stark sort of takes care of him and takes him under his wing. He kind of does do that, but he does it in his own Stark way, where he does sort of mess with the kid. He does joke with him. The one time when he realizes that the kid was just using a sob story to make him feel bad for him, and Stark is like, whatever, just drives off. Like, I like that they still kept Stark in that personality mode that I buy. And there's a scene where he gets attacked by these people who have been experimented on and infected with extremists. Extremists is something that also from the comic books. I found it fascinating that they brought it into this movie. It was made in a different way, but the sight of some of these people who used to be just normal people, now with this ability to overheat things, and there's an evilness to their face when they do it, and it's creepy looking, and Stark having to deal with these people without his suit. Don Cheadle as James Rhodes. I like Don Cheadle as Rhodey. I know Terrence Howard originally had the role, but I like Don Cheadle a little more. I think he's more endearing, and he was War Machine, but for whatever reason, the president and the government rebranded him as Iron Patriot, which I don't care for this Iron Patriot suit. I don't care for the look of it. I know it's a reference to Norman Osborn in the comic books, but still don't really care that they turn Rhodey into the Boy Scout for hire of the government. And then Stark uses his resources and he locates the position of the Mandarin. And here's the showdown. Here's the moment where you're going to see Stark go face to face with this Mandarin guy. What are we going to see? What's going to happen? We see the Mandarin revealed to be an actor, Trevor, played by Ben Kingsley, and he's not menacing. He's not scary. He's not a terrorist. He's just an actor. He's an actor that was hired by Guy Pearce to be the face of this villain project, to scare the government and scare the world into doing whatever he wanted. So he created a fictional character in the Mandarin. And I hated this so much. I have issues with this movie here and there. I have problems, I have moments, but this is the one unforgivable thing that this movie did. Some people think that when I complain about this, I'm simply just upset that they switched things up or that they surprise me or that I have such a huge connection to the Mandarin from the comic books that I was upset that they changed it. No, it's nothing to do with that. I don't care about being surprised. I like being surprised. I like when I can't predict something. So it's not that. It's just I was so caught up in the terrorist angle. I was so caught up in the Mandarin being a real life terrorist, and that idea fascinated me, and I wanted to see where they would take it. That the fact that you undid that, Shane Black, you undid a good idea that you had yourself just to take it away and just to make more jokes, which, yes, I do feel like this movie has too many jokes. I know that's Marvel's thing, and I love that Marvel likes to have fun because it does make their movies enjoyable. But this movie had enough dark stuff in here that you undercut it a lot with the jokes, and everything with Ben Kingsley at this point, from here on out, just rubbed me the wrong way. When I saw this in the theater, I was so hyped for this movie because it was the first Marvel movie after Avengers. I was so excited that when it came to this Mandarin reveal, I was so deflated. I was so what the F mode. I looked over at my friend and they too were like, "What?" They were disappointed. It just we all were disappointed, and I was never able to check back in, just mentally, emotionally care about anything else that happened from here on out. I was so deflated. It's the most disappointing reveal that I think I've ever had in a theater. Then we see Guy Pearce. Like I said, he reveals himself as the mastermind behind all of this, and that it's all about that night that Tony stood him up. And he kills Rebecca Hall, Maya, somebody who I couldn't tell if I was supposed to feel bad for her, if she was just a pawn, if she even realized how far Guy Pearce was going to take all of this, or if she was evil and if she just got killed because she's dumb. I still don't know how to feel about her and her character. I just like the actress, so I feel like she was wasted as well. There's a scene of Tony Stark, Iron Man, saving a bunch of politicians who get knocked out of a plane, and they're all in the air. And I do really enjoy this sequence. I do think it's something different. It's very cool just how he was able to get them all to come together and hold on to each other and make the fall go into the water. And then once again undercut by revealing that Stark wasn't in the suit all along and that the suit was empty, and so that he never really had any real danger himself. He didn't put himself out there in the open. It just, I think they were just trying to go for something cool and like, oh, hey, once again, here's a surprise, but I don't think it made sense for Stark to not be in the suit and not actually physically be there. Pepper was being experimented on, and because she was captured as well, you see Stark and Rhodes team up, which I like this because Shane Black wrote the Lethal Weapon movies, and so a buddy cop team up, a buddy scenario with Stark and Rhodes made sense. I think they got a couple of moments of that, but not nearly as much as I would have hoped. But there are some decent banter back and forth between the two, especially when they have to go to that oil rig and they face off with all of the extremist people, and you have that shot of all of the suits, so many of Iron Man's suits that I guess he had for backup, although you thought that his whole home and all of the suits in the garage was destroyed, but I guess he had some backups. And you see so many different suits. A lot of them are references to the comic book suits. There's even I don't know if it's the Hulkbuster, but it's a pretty big suit. I do think it's cool the moments of him going from suit to suit as some of them get destroyed and he has to jump into another one. It's creative. It's something good to look at. It's just I'm so deflated after the whole Mandarin thing that it was hard for me to care about any of this action going on. Guy Pearce reveals himself as the real Mandarin. Bullshit! That's just a way for the movie to save face and say, oh, see, there is a Mandarin. There is a version of the Mandarin. It's just not who you think. I think this whole Mandarin thing was a bust. And not only that, but now it sucks. It sucks that we'll probably never see that again. I know that they did that short film of Ben Kingsley in prison, and it was pretty comical. And then at the very end, you reveal that there is a real Mandarin out there. And so I know that they try to do that for the fans. They try to make us happy. It's still just, it's not enough. Pepper, since she escaped and Stark is trying to save her, she falls off of a ledge and falls into fire. And presumably you think she dies. And this is a huge moment for Pepper to die, right? And Stark, I feel like he could have been more upset. Honestly, he looks sad for a second, and then I feel like he just cracks a joke after when he's dealing with Guy Pearce again. And it takes me out of it. It's like, no, he should have been crushed. He should have been devastated. I want to care about them as a couple, but his reaction to her potential death, it just rubs me the wrong way. You find out though that Pepper, because of the experiments and the extremis, that she's still alive. She comes out of the fire looking like a badass, and I admit Gwyneth Paltrow looks like a total badass in this moment, where she goes to fight Guy Pearce and destroys him, kills him, eviscerates him. And sure, you didn't have Stark save the day. You had her do it, but it was a nice moment for her. I do like that. Stark decides to destroy all of the suits now, which confuses me because it's like, well, dude, do you really think that we're not going to have any other threats in the world? You think after the Mandarin or Guy Pearce that this is it and we're safe now to do whatever we want? I know he's doing this to save face for Pepper, to show his devotion for her, and that's all well and good, but I don't know. I don't buy that Stark would destroy everything just like that. We get a scene of the two of them where we find out that it's Christmas time because Shane Black loves Christmas, so why not? Tony then decides to have surgery to remove the shrapnel that was in his heart, and this made me go, what? You're telling me that he could have just gotten surgery at any point for all of these years and he would have been fine? That sucks. I mean, what are we saying? That Stark was too busy and that he didn't have the time to have this surgery? Because I, for the longest time, thought that there was nothing you could do, that he had to live like this, that arc reactor is the only thing keeping him alive. And this third movie just randomly out of the blue says, no, he could have surgery and now he's okay. And they try to say that he gives up being Iron Man. I don't care for that either. I do like the post-credit scene of Stark because the whole movie he's narrating, and that's something different. You don't always get that in a Marvel movie. But you find out that he's actually telling the story to Bruce Banner like he's a therapist. And that was a really nice, funny moment to end the film with. But overall, look, do I hate Iron Man 3? I don't hate it. Hate's too strong of a word. But I am very disappointed. I do get upset when I think about certain things that was done, how certain plot points were handled, how certain characters were handled, how this movie just feels like it was becoming its own thing. I know people give Marvel or even DC flack for not letting directors do their own thing, but here's a good example of they let somebody do too much of their own thing. And in my opinion, this is the weakest MCU movie that we've got. So guys, let me know in the comments below if you too think that Iron Man 3 is the weakest Marvel movie, or do you have another MCU movie that you think is worse? Thanks for watching.